Hello and welcome. My name is Benita Dimely Ross and I will be the host for this TLC session. Tutoring on Demand is now, it's live, and it's free. But does it make a difference and who cares? Presented by Mindy Sloan. We are excited that you have joined us today to hear Mindy's presentation. The chat window will be open during the session, so please feel free to participate or ask questions. Please welcome Mindy.
Thank you, Benita. And absolutely, as you all who are attending today have questions, please do write them in the chat. I'd rather have a conversation than just talk at you for the next few minutes. I so much appreciate your being here, and I'm so pleased and excited to be able to share some of the data that we've collected, analyzed, and interpreted relative to tutoring on demand. Whoops, I am not progressing to the next slide. There, okay. Some of you all may be very aware that we've had tutoring on demand in a number of different places at Ashford University for quite some time. The first folks to roll out 24/7 tutoring was the library, and that was in January of 2016. By March of 2016, we'd rolled it out to writing, so students in all courses, all assignments, all the time could get access to 24/7 library and writing support. We had such good preliminary data that we were able to convince others that it would be to our benefit, and particularly to the benefit of our learners, if we expanded tutoring. So what you see here are the list of courses which have tutoring at this time. And when I say tutoring, I mean 24/7, literally 24/7, one-on-one attention from an individual who is trained and experienced not only in a particular content area, but who has worked closely with us to understand our population of learners. We demand and will accept nothing less than tutors who understand it's not just about teaching content. It's about empowering, it's about building confidence, it's about helping learners believe, to know that they can do it. So we're very pleased that we've rolled out to this many courses. And when I talk about the data today, this is what I'm going to talk about, the tutoring across these courses. You might wonder how often tutoring is used. So this slide shows a little bit about that. As you can see, from launch through the end of September, we've had over 100,000 sessions, 100,000 sessions, logging over 43,000 hours. What we found with tutoring, including paper review, is that our most likely user is going to be a female, probably going to be somebody over 50 years of age. And luckily with Grammarly, we've also seen that men are reaching out more in military students too. I'll tell you, with the 24/7 tutoring, we've asked ourselves if tutoring is even the right word to use, if it's condescending, if it's a little bit insulting, a little bit scary. And right now we're doing user research to find out if that's true. We have some very preliminary data that shows about 2 out of 3 learners do see it as somewhat condescending. So we're continuously looking for different terms. Paper review is the opportunity for a learner to submit a paper and get it back within 24 hours. As you can see from our usage data, it's the single most popular strategy that we offer. And Grammarly is an automated paper review tool. You submit a paper to Grammarly, it comes back immediately. This could be a reason, we're hypothesizing, it could be a reason that men feel more comfortable with Grammarly. It's the most removed, the safest place to be if you're trying to keep some level of anonymity. And military folks too like it. And that could be for a lot of different reasons. We've wondered too about bandwidth. When folks are using the internet, oftentimes if they're stationed across the globe, particularly if they're out on a ship somewhere in the ocean or one of the seas, it can be difficult to get reliable access to the tutoring platforms. So that may be why Grammarly is important there too. But the bottom line is we have a sense of who's using these various tools, and our goal is to increase usage so all learners can benefit. Here's a summary of a study that was done internally by our own data management team over at Bridgepoint Education. And what you can see over time is that there's an overall reduction in drops, 1.22 percentage points. And you might think, oh, that's not very much, but some of you are familiar with the data and have seen retention data, for example, reported. It takes a lot to move the needle. So these data give us hope, and we're very optimistic about it. Overall fail rate dropped by 4.21 percentage points, pass rate up by 5.43, and we particularly saw the strongest outcomes in accounting courses. Accounting is interesting because we had checked with different vendors about what areas they suggest that we offer tutoring with, and they did not suggest accounting. But we looked at our courses that were at risk, we looked at our enrollments, and so we collaborated, academic folks, student enrollment, student advising, and decided let's try accounting. And indeed, that is where we are seeing the biggest change. We compared users to non-users and saw, again, the same kind of pattern. People who use these tools tend to do better, have more success. This is a in the weeds look. We looked at sections that had tutoring and the same courses a year prior that didn't have tutoring. And across the board, what you'll see is the pattern. Once tutoring is implemented, higher drop rate or lower drop rates, lower fail rates, higher pass rates. Here's another look at it, users versus non-users by the courses that showed the greatest difference. And again, across the board, you see users performing more strongly. This is a look at persistence. You find that those who use it are more likely to persist into 1 class, 2 classes, 3 classes, and so on. This is a look at Grammarly. Grammarly, again, is an automated paper review tool. You submit your paper, you get it back immediately. It recommends lower level writing improvements, things like grammar and punctuation and spelling. It's kind of like spell check, word spell check on steroids. And so what you see here are that those who use Grammarly, again, higher pass rates, lower fail rates, and lower drop rates. This is another look at the top courses that use Grammarly. And what you see when you compare them, again, the same pattern. This is a more in-depth look at, again, who is using Grammarly. And what you can see in the far right column under all is the population of Ashford students. What you can see under user and non-users are those who did and did not take advantage of the strategy. What we were looking at was the proportion under user and non-user and the degree to which it matched the percentage under all. You would expect that the user and non-user groups would be mini versions of the all proportions. But as you can see, in some places they are not. And again, users tend to be a little older, they tend to be female, and they tend to be single less often and married more often. Military students, again, this is different outcome than what we find with our other tutoring strategies and tools. We see more military students. So where are we going next? I'm going to talk about that and then show you another study that we just got a few weeks ago. We are expanding tutoring into additional quantitative courses. So we'll be rolling out 15 more courses in January, Q1 of 2018, and we're very excited about that. We believe that we have tested the model and we're finding that it works. Civitas, some of you all may not have heard of Civitas yet, is rolling out to all faculty in Q1. It's rolled out to the advisors just recently, here in Q3 and Q4. And what it is, it's a tool that is able to create a predictive model. It takes a lot of data, 1,100 different data points actually, and creates a predictive model that allows us to identify those learners who could benefit from using various strategies. If you're an instructor, what you're going to see when you go into your course is a Civitas button that appears, and you're going to open it up, and it's going to give you, for lack of a better term, a dashboard. And you're going to see learners who are at risk, and you're going to have the option of sending those learners, reaching out with a templated but personalized email. And that email may contain a link to a particular strategy, like tutoring, like Grammarly, like paper review. So Civitas is an outreach effort. It does nothing to guarantee that the student will actually take advantage of it. It does not guarantee that an instructor will send the email. It's another attempt to engage our instructors, to engage our learners, and get them to take advantage of these tools that the data are showing can be effective. So our goal is to increase usage, get it to the right learners, continue to collaborate, both with enrollment and academic advisors and with instructors, because none of this works. None of this works if we don't have enrollment and academic advisors working. I'm going to very quickly show you something, and this was a big study that was done by Civitas. They were able to get our data. They took the data for 2017 and 2016, so they had writing data mostly and some subject matter tutoring, and here you can see the number of students. And they did something to allow us to feel more comfortable about comparing users to non-users. As I'm sure you all may know, there's always the threat of selection bias. You could argue, and I think very validly, that those students who reach out and use some of these strategies are going to succeed anyway. That those who need it most aren't the ones using it. And that's always been an issue. There are folks that want us to do control and experimental designs, and there are ethical issues with that. How do you deny a group of students an opportunity to use these tools so you can do a study? Well, second to that, you can control for particular variables that allow you to create matched groups. So your user group and your non-user group are identical, except that your user group chose to use a strategy. That's what Civitas did here. So they've created a variable. It's a derivative variable, so it's created from other variables brought together, and they call it persistence. It's the likelihood that a student will continue on to the next quarter. When Civitas defines terms, they define a term as a quarter. What you can see here is they had 100% match on persistence. So the group of users and non-users were exactly the same relative to persistence. Then they controlled for propensity. And again, that's a derivative variable. So it's a group of variables brought together, and propensity had to do with the level of engagement. And again, they created a group of users and non-users that were identical on their rating of propensity. So here we have a group of non-users and a group of users who are identical relative to persistence and propensity. Now we can compare them and feel less concerned about selection bias threats. And still we found a 4.8% difference. So I'm very excited to show these data and to share them with you all. And I would love to get your feedback and see what's going on with the chat. Lots more to come, but I think that we're off to a good start, and we've got some good data to back us up. To spur on a little discussion, I'll show you a few more slides here. I know some of you love data, but you may be a little overwhelmed, so we can walk through these as quickly or slowly as you like. But this was a look at the 4 quadrants within student performance. So basically, Civitas folks broke our students into 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is the bottom quartile, and those are students who tend to perform with the lowest grades and are most at risk. You've got the second quartile, where anywhere from 25% to 50 percentile. Then we've got the third quartile, which is 50% to 75th percentile, and then you've got the top quartile. And what you can see on the screen, to our surprise but to our delight, is that the bottom quartile are the students who are most likely to benefit from tutoring. So oftentimes you hear folks say, oh, well, there's a group of students that we shouldn't really invest a lot of time and money in because they're going to fail and there's nothing we can do. We might want to take a pause and reflect a moment on these data before we make that conclusion, because what these data are showing us is that those students who may be most at risk are also those who are most likely to benefit. And I see Michelle asking, do we know how we compare with tutoring usage with other comparable institutions? We actually average around 6 to 7%, and that is a little higher than like universities, other institutions. And I believe that our greater success in increasing student usage really goes back to those advisors, those instructors, those student-facing teams who let individual learners know in a very non-threatening, very empowering way that they can benefit if they use tutoring, Grammarly, or paper review. So great question, and thank you for asking, Michelle. I'll also show you this one. We saw a lift in persistence by student type. So there's the reentry student, the first-time college student, the transfer student. Oftentimes you'll hear people say, oh, transfer students are the best students. We need more transfer students. They have a history of academic success. What this is showing you is the reentry and the first time in college, often those first-generation college students, are actually benefiting a great deal from tutoring. And here we can see lift in persistence by terms completed. And you can see here students who use tutoring. And again, remember, when we compare users to non-users, we've controlled for persistence and propensity. So we believe these data are much more valid, have less threats than previous studies. But you can see here that users are more likely to continue for 1, 2, 3 terms. So a very, very, very positive and very hopeful set of data. This is a look at race. I will tell you that I hesitate oftentimes to report data based on race. I think if it's actionable data that can lead us to something that improves the student experience, I think it's a wonderful set of data to report. It has to be actionable though. And so what you see here are some data suggesting that students with various ethnic, racial backgrounds benefit from tutoring, and what you can see across the board is everybody does. Everybody benefits from tutoring. It really is not about your race. This is again looking at gender, and we see females benefiting. We could talk about what that means. I'm just happy if men are reaching out at this point. But it goes back to that initial question on the first few slides. What can we do to encourage usage, to make that experience more positive for all of our learners? As a white female who's 58 years old, single, and working, I wonder sometimes if I don't even bring my own bias to this project. I'm looking at what I think would work. Are there things that I'm doing on an unconscious or subconscious level that influence the experience and sways it for a particular audience? So we really would like a lot of input from a lot of diverse folks, a lot of diverse perspectives, because the goal here is to be effective with all of our students. And I think one of the richest, most valuable parts of our student population is that we have a diverse population and we have success with diverse learners. And this is all overall persistence lift by different quarter. What you'll see is that in some quarters we actually had a larger number of students than others, and that may influence our results. But what's most important is to really look at the pattern. You can look at each quarter and compare them and think through possible reasons why one quarter may be ahead of another quarter. But ideally what you want to see is the pattern. And I'll reiterate that just for a moment. Whether it's Grammarly, whether it's paper review, whether it's 24/7 tutoring, whether it's comparing users to non-users with or without matching them and controlling for propensity and persistence, if it's looking at course by course comparisons, the course a year prior to the current course, no matter how we cut these data, no matter how we look at them, we see the same pattern. Tutoring makes a difference. Paper review makes a difference. Grammarly makes a difference. What needs to happen moving forward is more students need to use it, and definitely those who can benefit most need to use it. So I'm very excited. These are the key takeaways, and I'm very open to questions, and I'm very open to discussions. If you all have any ideas about what we can do to get these tools into the hands of our students, I would love to hear about it. Love to. Thank you so much. And I'll stay here for a little bit and look at the chat box. We've encouraged instructors to use announcements in courses, and we've done some studies and found that instructors who post announcements have a greater proportion of students who use tutoring or Grammarly or paper review. You may not have noticed, but I'm wondering what you all think. Which do you think is the most powerful, seems to be the most powerful strategy? Do you think it's 24/7 tutoring? Do you think it's Grammarly? Or do you think it's the 24-hour turnaround paper review? Let me know what you think. All of them show positive outcomes, but one consistently shows more positive outcomes, a greater difference between users and non-users. Any guesses? I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. Good guess, Pam. It could be true because not all 24/7 tutoring is probably created equally. We have some amazing tutors and some that need some help. It's actually paper review, which really was kind of fun to know. Paper review is a process that involves an actual manual review of a paper. Students get it back within 24 hours, which means they've got to plan a little bit before they do it. And Millie Jones and Christy Frienza with the Writing Center team have worked closely with those tutors for probably a year and a half now, over a year and a half. It'll be 2 years in March. And they have made sure that the feedback that the students get is really about higher level writing. So they're talking about the organization of the paper, the construction of the idea, the thesis statement. And to see that those higher level skills are what make the most difference is really a delight, really a delight. It really validates a lot of the efforts that I see with the English faculty and I hear about from the Writing Center. So we're very, very thrilled and excited to see those data. It is difficult oftentimes, Carol, to get students to use the tutoring. And the tutoring, the 24/7 tutoring is not in every course. In Q1, we'll roll it out to 15, so it'll be in 30 courses. And that's subject matter tutoring. That's math, accounting, research methods, finance, econ. Those things are going to be covered, the quant areas basically. But writing tutoring and library tutoring are all assignments, all courses, all learners, all the time. So there's no need to hesitate. There's no need to worry that you don't have that support in your course. You do have writing support in your courses. You do have library support in your courses. And we started with those. We really did start with those because it's recognized that if you're going to succeed in an online environment, you've got to know how to write. It really doesn't matter if it's an English course, an anthropology course, a finance course, a history course, it doesn't matter. You're going to need to write and you're going to use the library. So because writing and library cut across every single course, we started there. And those are the ones that have been in place the longest. It's really been a fun road. I've said this to a lot of people. One thing that I've learned for sure is you don't plug in a tool and walk away from it. If we had just started using library tutoring or just started using writing tutoring and had not done a lot of quality assurance around those interactions, we probably would not be seeing the gains that we're seeing now. As you all probably know, we use vendors to do this. We can't staff the 24/7 hours at the scale that we need to for our students, so we had to use vendors. And some vendors are invested and some vendors are not. And it's not about being their best friend. It's about being polite and nice and all of that, but it's not about being their best friend. They have to deliver. They have to deliver our students, or we find a different vendor. So we're always looking for ways to improve that experience and never assuming that any outside vendor has what it takes to help our students. Melody says her next class is Business 591, and it's an accounting course that has tutoring, will have tutoring, and that's awesome. And it'll be so important, Melody, I believe, to refer those learners who you see showing challenges, refer them to the 24/7 tutoring, and then let me know and let my team know if it's working. I get emails, I got them yesterday, from a student who had sent an email to an advisor because the tutoring experience wasn't positive, and I immediately contacted the vendor and said, we need to fix this. And we'll keep fixing it. So it's a team effort. It's not just my team. It's not one single person on my team. It's advisors, it's instructors, it's the folks that build the courses, that put the links in, like Justine and Jen Wirch and her team. It takes all of us to really make sure that tutoring, writing, supports across the board, library supports across the board work.